Hollywood in the 1980s turned movies into events, with packed theaters, soundtrack singles on the radio, and budgets that kept climbing. But even in the decade of sequels and spectacle, some films crashed in ways nobody could ignore. Sometimes the timing was terrible, like chasing disco after the trend cooled. Sometimes the production spiraled until the price tag became the headline. And sometimes a clever idea on paper turned into a confusing mess on screen. Today we're covering 16 notorious bombs from 1980 through 88 because these are the 16 biggest box office flops of the 80s. Can't stop the music.
Once you see Alan Carr's musical extravaganza, you'll know why you can't stop the excitement.
EMI put about $20 million into this Village People musical and got roughly $2 million back. The disco wave had already faded, so the movie arrived behind the times. It was promoted as a family musical, even though the staging leaned knowingly campy. Big production numbers could not save a thin plot, and a reportedly huge publicity spend only made the failure louder. It became the first Golden Raspberry worst picture ever. Heaven's Gate.
Worst movie I ever saw. Really, terrible movie.
Gorgeous music, gorgeous photography, but it's a real fanny twitcher.
I think it still needs some pruning, frankly.
It was a little long, it was a little boring, and I don't think it was a story people wanted to hear.
United Artists gave Michael Cimino enormous freedom after The Deer Hunter, and the Western's cost ballooned from about $7.5 million to roughly $44 million, plus major promotion. After a high-profile New York premiere and brutal press, it was pulled, recut, and re-released, yet still collapsed with a U.S. gross around $3.5 million. Delays, extensive retakes, and expensive add-ons became legendary. The disaster was so severe that UA's corporate parent sold the studio to MGM. Popeye.
Hey, wait a minute, are you trying to pull a fast one? You can't walk yet.
Robert Altman's live-action Popeye cost about $20 million and grossed around $49.8 million, so it was not a total wipeout, but it never became the major hit Paramount wanted. The Malta-built Sweet Haven set looked wonderful, yet overlapping dialogue and odd musical rhythm made it a tricky sell for kids. Robin Williams was energetic in his debut, and Shelley Duvall was perfectly cast, but the songs were largely forgettable, and the tone felt niche. Raise the Titanic.
What do you think the eventual total cost of this movie will work out to be?
I'm leaving now.
Is it possible, do you think, to raise the Titanic?
Yes, it certainly is, if you don't ask the cost.
Budgeted around $36 million, this Clive Cussler adaptation managed only about $14.8 million domestically. The poster promised the impossible, but the story padded the savage hook with espionage, romance tangles, and a radioactive mineral MacGuffin. At the time, the real wreck had not yet been found, which made the concept feel oddly abstract. Audiences had flashier opinions in 1980, including The Empire Strikes Back. It drew Razzie nominations, and Cussler reportedly refused further film adaptations. Honky Tonk Freeway.
I have a reservation. I have a reservation.
Ma'am, our computer shows no record of that. And we are booked up, so we have no room for you. I am sorry.
You have no room for us. I cannot believe this is happening. I cannot believe this is happening to us.
Well, it happened to Joseph and Mary, and that turned out okay.
John Schlesinger aimed for a sprawling ensemble satire, but the $24 million comedy grossed about $2 million. A Florida town without a freeway exit tries to lure motorists with free gas, pink paint, and a safari park, including a water-skiing elephant. The setup sounds like broad fun, yet the movie's fragmented road stories and shrill tone wore people down. It even picked up a Razzie nomination for an original song. Roar.
It is almost a series of dailies strung together in which something goes horribly wrong in every single shot.
Roar is famous less for its plot than how dangerous it was to make. With a budget around $17 million, it grossed roughly $110,000 and played only briefly. Tippi Hedren stars opposite director Noel Marshall in a thin family story built around real lions and tigers. Filming stretched across 11 years and produced serious injuries, including Melanie Griffith needing facial stitches. Floods, fire, and animal illness turned the production into a cautionary legend. Krull.
Beyond our time, beyond our universe, there is a planet besieged by alien invaders, where a young king must rescue his love from the clutches of the beast, or risk the death of his world. A world called Krull.
Columbia spent about $47 million on this sword and sorcery sci-fi blend and earned roughly $16.9 million. Designed to tap into the appetite for fantasy adventures and the popularity of tabletop fantasy, it follows a familiar rescue quest as a prince gathers allies and a magical weapon to save his bride from an evil beast. The effects were costly, but quickly looked dated, and the villain imagery often appeared hazy rather than thrilling. Many viewers dismissed it as a derivative cash-in. Staying Alive.
Now you have the sequel. Very slow-moving, absolutely two-dimensional characters that you don't care about at all, and the music, well, I was about to use an impolite word, which we shouldn't use on the air, but it's not bloody good.
Made for about $22 million and grossing about $64.9 million, this Saturday Night Fever sequel was not a pure financial collapse, but it became a critical punching bag. Sylvester Stallone co-wrote and directed, pushing Tony Manero into a harsher persona as he chases Broadway. The story leans on cliches, a love triangle, and choppy dance sequences, and critics blasted the dialogue and characters. Razzie nominations followed, and the film hurt Travolta's momentum. The Cotton Club.
A film that has had a much reported on troubled production history, but who cares about that? It's the movie that counts, and The Cotton Club, the movie, turns out to be a fine but wildly uneven picture with a lackluster star at its center and a story, I think, that doesn't really kick into high gear until the second hour.
Francis Coppola's Prohibition-era Harlem drama carried a massive budget of about $58 million and grossed only $25.9 million. It looks lavish, with stylish sets, costumes, and big stage numbers, but it struggled to balance gangster violence, romance, and performer storylines. Constant rewrites and negative publicity dogged the release, and audiences were cooling on musicals by 1984. It recouped only about half of its privately financed cost. Dune.
Dune, I didn't have final cut on. It's the only film I've made that I didn't have. I didn't technically have final cut on The Elephant Man, but Mel Brooks gave it to me. And on Dune, I started selling out even in the script phase, knowing I didn't have final cut, and I sold out.
David Lynch's adaptation of Frank Herbert's novel cost around $40 million and grossed $31 million. But its bigger problem was clarity. Dense lore, countless characters, heavy narration, and even on-screen inner thoughts tried to compress a massive book into one film. For newcomers, it felt slow, cluttered, and confusing, even when the visuals were striking. The dark, filtered look and rock soundtrack choices divided viewers. Revolution.
I thought it was bought out, and so did you, before it was ready. And that was a part of, I guess, the company wanting to get it out before the award season, whatever. It was opened in December. And it was a series of things, and you hadn't finished it. It needed work.
Hugh Hudson followed Chariots of Fire with this $28 million American Revolution epic, and then watched it gross only about $359,000. Al Pacino was widely viewed as miscast, and the mix of accents pulled attention away from the drama. Production problems included illness, bad weather, and overruns, and scenes were cut, leaving a disjointed story. Hudson wanted an impressionistic approach, but the action felt jerky, and the coincidences strained credibility. The feature was so severe, Pacino did not star in another film for 4 years, returning with Sea of Love. Howard the Duck.
Was that unsettling to have this little figure and try to imagine that it was a real thing, or how did you cope with that?
It was a real thing. We have to understand that. Howard is a real duck.
If you say so.
Backed by Lucasfilm and released by Universal, Howard the Duck cost about $37 million, made around $16.3 million domestically, and reached about $38 million worldwide. Based on a Marvel character, it leaned into effects, chase scenes, explosions, and a wisecracking hero portrayed by multiple performers in a duck suit. The tone came off bizarre and inconsistent, and audiences did not bite. Variety even ran a famous headline about the fallout at the studio after the release. Shanghai Surprise.
The sort of thing they do, isn't it? The press are that way inclined, when they get onto something. It's like a sort of fox hunt, they smell blood and they'll go there, yoo-hoo, over the hedges with their knives.
Handmade Films and MGM UA expected sparks from newlyweds Madonna and Sean Penn, but the $17 million film grossed only about $2.3 million and was nicknamed Flop Suey. Set in 1937 China, it pairs a missionary nurse with a fortune hunter in a plot involving opium and misadventure, but viewers complained about weak chemistry and a muddled story. The Razzies pounced with multiple nominations, and Madonna received a Worst Actress win. Ishtar.
Telling the truth can be dangerous business. If you don't know yourself, then you don't know why.
Oh, is that brilliant?
Ishtar became a symbol of costly Hollywood overconfidence. With a budget of around $51 to $55 million, it grossed about $14.4 million worldwide, losing roughly $40 million. Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman play would-be lounge singers who travel to Morocco and stumble into a Cold War tangle involving the CIA and local factions. Reports of big salaries and final cut power led the backlash as costs rose. The finished movie was widely mocked, and it earned a Worst Director Razzie win for Elaine May. Leonard Part 6.
Not afraid of a little meat?
Bill Cosby co-produced and co-wrote this spy spoof, budgeted around $24 million, and it returned only about $4.6 million. The title jokes that Leonard saved the world in 5 earlier adventures, then drops him into a plot where a villain manipulates animals using dishwashing liquid. The film piles on goofy gadgets, broad gags, and heavy product placement, and many viewers found it painfully unfunny. It drew 5 Razzie nominations and won 3, and Cosby urged audiences to avoid it. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
You are with the Baron. You are with that little man. You told me size don't make a difference. Oh, you put now head to hit. That's it. I find you, Baron, and then I kill you.
Terry Gilliam's fantasy spectacle cost about $46.6 million and grossed only about $8.1 worldwide, despite its creative flair and 4 Oscar nominations. The movie races through extravagant set pieces, from moon royalty to volcano gods and sea monsters, with expensive effects and theatrical staging. But production delays, cost overruns, and shifting studio priorities undercut promotion. It was hard to market as a mainstream event, and the box office could not match the ambition. Over time, it built a cult following that appreciated the imagination and the handmade spectacle. Now it's time to hear from you. Which of these 1980s flops do you think deserved a second chance in theaters, and which one makes you say it was doomed from day one?